Hello everyone. Today I'm going to show you how to build an AI workforce in Relevance AI's new Workforce Builder. I've chosen a pretty simple workforce structure for the sake of the video, but one I think is really going to be useful for most people out there. Now, we all have a lot of meetings, especially people in product and sales. The amount of note takers in meetings nowadays is pretty out of control. I've even seen them outnumber the amount of actual humans in calls. Some people even bring in multiple note takers to their call just to get different summaries and action items. So I made one AI meeting agent and an army of its own with its own sub-agents that gives you so much more flexibility with what you can actually do with your meeting notes. And so this agent workforce here shows you exactly how to set up a manual trigger, separate triggers as well, like Gmail or other clients, and send it through to an agent that can go and process that transcript and then send it to other agents that have their own specific roles. For example, one that can actually hyper-personalize and send follow-up emails to prospects and calls, and another one that can store the meeting transcripts in a lot of different places. So let's look at the general framework of what we've got over here. I've simplified the view over here in this diagram just to show us what's going on. So this agent starts generally by two different ways. We've got a manual trigger where you can type in a message and have the agent actually just receive that message from you and kickstart from there. You can also set up triggers that are automated. For example, if the meeting is sent to you as a transcript through Gmail, through Outlook, or if it's sent through other softwares like Grain, Fathom, Fireflies, all the other note-taking apps, these can be set up through API calls or different native integrations to actually send these through to Relevance AI. But really, we're just going to work with manual triggers and an email trigger here. For example, I have an automation that sends me an email transcript every time I have a call. So this would trigger every time that happens. Otherwise, I can just do it manually myself. Once we have a transcript actually come through, it goes through to Tron, the transcriptor. Tron essentially receives the transcript and then just formats it. Really just a language model and a delegator agent. So this is the orchestrator agent in our entire flow. Tron receives the transcript, formats it, and generates a meeting summary. We can actually personalize that meeting summary to whatever format we want. So you can actually have a lot of control over what your transcript turns into. I've seen people use this to just generate regular meeting summaries. I've also seen people use it to generate proposals, project briefs, etc. Lots of different things you can do here. After Tron is done generating the meeting summary, it'll send it through to Vinny, the Vault Keeper. So Vinny actually stores the transcript in a few key areas, just so you can have it stored across your different platforms. For example, Google Docs, a Slack message sent to you in a different channel, and maybe potentially even a Notion database. I've actually outlined a lot of different softwares here. This is very much a non-exhaustive list, but a lot of different things you can do with your transcript. For example, you can even send it to your CRM, like HubSpot, Salesforce, send it to an Airtable, Google Drive, Notion, bunch of different softwares. For the sake of the video, I'll just go through Slack, Google Docs, and sending an email. And then there's another agent called Freddy, the follow-up fellow. Freddy basically drafts a follow-up email. In the case of sales calls, for example, you often don't have the time between back-to-back meetings to actually take the transcript, look at the different summaries, and send a really, really good email to a prospect with all the different things they asked for, all the different resources that you want to send. So this actually automates that. We can draft a follow-up email that can even ask for your approval or just auto send if you're happy with the format. And it basically takes the transcript, takes a bunch of resources, even learns how you write emails, and is able to draft a follow-up from there. So very simple flow. The transcript comes in, it is processed, it is sent to this Vault Keeper to store the transcripts, and then it is sent to this follow-up agent that will create an email that will send. So let's take a look at what it looks like in the Workforce Builder. As you can see, the diagram is pretty much the same. And so that's the great thing about how this has been visualized. We have a manual message, which if I were to click run and type in a message, I'd be able to actually activate the agent. And then I've got Google Mail, which is set up to receive emails from my colleague who usually sends me the transcripts, and those come through and they get sent to Tron. So Tron has two connected tools: format the meeting transcript and generate the meeting summary. Very simple. Tron processes meeting transcripts and recordings to create summaries, formats transcripts, and does things with them. Freddy is another agent that sends the hyper-personalized follow-up emails to prospects, and then Vinny is the agent that stores those meeting transcripts somewhere else. So let's take an in-depth look at what each of these agents do and how they're all connected. I'll start with the master agent, Tron. So if we look at Tron, first of all, Tron has very simple instructions. Kind of going over the top here with the role. So Tron is a world-class executive assistant that takes a transcript and has worked for the most influential figures in the Fortune 500 companies. But very basic instructions: receives the meeting transcript and follows these steps. Uses the format meeting transcript tool to format the transcript, which is a very basic tool that just takes the raw meeting, uses a language model, and then actually just formats it in a very neat manner, and then generates the meeting summary to generate summary notes. So the way that I've built this, and all the templates for this will be available for you to actually copy if you need them as well after the video, is I go into the tools over here, and generate meeting summary actually takes in a summary format. So this is using one of those dynamic variables. And if you want to understand more about how these variables work, feel free to check out my last video that actually went through this and how to set that all up. But if I go into the variables, I've actually got a bit of a format here that is set up. So you can set this up any way you want, as simple as you want or as complicated as you want, but this is where you get to decide how your meeting summary is created, whether that be a project brief, a proposal, or just a general summary. But you get to personalize exactly what that summary looks like and how it's filled out. So we really got a lot of control over the outcome right here. Going back to the prompt, it is then sent over to Vinny the Vault Keeper to store the transcript, and then it is sent to Freddy the follow-up fellow to draft and send a follow-up email to the prospects. All I had to do over here is just mention the agents by name, and hopefully Workforce will take care of the rest. So I've named the agents here, and then upon completion, done. And so we don't have to rely on this agent doing anything else except for creating that meeting summary and then sending it to the other agents to take care of the rest. So all the other settings are in this agent. So let's check out some of the other agents. So looking at Vinny the Vault Keeper over here, Vinny essentially has a very simple function. Vinny will receive the meeting summary notes, and when Vinny receives them, he'll use create a Google Doc to create a Google Doc with the meeting summary notes, use send a message to Slack to send that meeting summary to me in a private channel that I set up on Slack, and then use send summary to email to send a summary of that meeting transcript to my email as well, just so I have it on record. So 3 very simple steps. And again, if you want to expand this into sending over to Notion or your CRM, HubSpot, Salesforce, etc., you can do so just by adding more tools and adding more prompts. So Vinny is a very simple agent. And just to show you how I've actually logged into all these accounts, you basically just need to set up all your authentications on Relevance AI in the integrations page, and then just plug them in here. So I'm actually sending to this email. This is where I want my transcripts to be sent to, as per the send summary to email. If I go into Slack, I just had to authenticate and then add in the Slack channel that this is going to be sent to as well. And the same with Google Docs. So creating a Google Doc, I want it created in this account, and it will just post there. So very simple again. Now let's move on to Freddy the follow-up fellow. Again, a little bit more complicated in this one. Freddy the follow-up fellow has a lot more instructions, as you can see. This agent realistically only does a very simple thing. It drafts a follow-up email to the prospect, and then it sends that message to me on Slack with a draft of the email, just to show me what it's actually created so that I can then approve it. And then it's got a use send Gmail email step that allows me to send that follow-up email to prospects. I've actually set that to require approval over here, although everything else is auto run. The reason is that I want to double check and read the draft on Gmail and then actually be able to approve it before I actually send that through, just in case. So what are the rest of the different settings here? We're basically just outlining a lot of email composition guidelines. Anyone here who's tried to actually write an email with ChatGPT and its core settings knows that it writes really bad emails in general, just because it isn't really trained on how to write emails. We all have our own style. So just a little trick, what I did was I took a lot of different emails that I've written in the past. So it really helps to have a lot of different examples. And I put them through ChatGPT and asked it to basically generate some email composition guidelines for an AI agent. There's a few other workarounds, so you don't have to do that. You can actually add knowledge here and just put in a bunch of different examples of your emails, and it should function the same. I just preferred to do this because you can get quite granular and add in a lot of different settings. And again, this template will be included, So you don't have to worry about making all of this from scratch, but rather just editing little things like a few little nuances that I wanted to remove or add into the emails. And I also gave it some details on my company, authentications, and even an email example of how I typically like to write the first follow-up email after a meeting. I've even been able to include some important links. So often I have to send links to prospects afterwards with resources, for example, clone links of different agents. So I've actually included those, and the agent will very cleverly include those in the email as well, if that is mentioned in the transcript. For example, if I say to a prospect that I'm going to send them a certain agent after the call, it'll patch that in there as well. So as you can see, this here is basically just a professional email writing agent. And now we have a multi-agent system. So Tron receives the transcript, Freddie will send an email, Vinny will store all the notes. A very simple example of an AI workforce. Now, I can expand this more and more if I want to. For example, I can add more triggers over here. And there's a lot of different options of different triggers that I can do. I can have it recur as a schedule. I can add in Microsoft Outlook, have it triggered by a calendar. I can also add in different agents as well to this workforce. For example, I've got a lot of different agents here. One that scrapes news, one that actually does copywriting for me, but we'll just keep it simple right now and just keep this as a very simple workforce. And I'll delete this trigger over here as well. So what does it actually look like when this agent runs? I've actually got an example of a fabricated transcript that I'll just feed into this agent, and we'll just try and see how it runs. So I'm going to click run over here and create a new task. So this is summarizing the workforce that we have. We got Tron, Freddie, and Vinny. So realistically, Tron is just expecting a transcript. And so that's what I'm going to put through. I'm just pasting in a very large unstructured transcript with a bunch of different text, and I'm going to click enter. And now we'll start to see Tron work with the different members of the workforce just as it starts the process. So we can see that Tron has actually started using his own tools. So formatting the meeting transcript and now generating the meeting summary out of that as well. We click in, we can actually preview what happened here. So we've got the formatted transcript and the summary format over here. And then the output is a summarized form of that transcript. And now it's being delegated to Vinny to actually store this somewhere. So Vinny uses his own tools, creating a Google Doc first, and then sending a message to me on Slack, and then sending me a summary email as well. So Vinny's worked through this and everything has been successfully processed. If I look into Google Docs now, looks like I've got a meeting summary of the meeting that we just had, pasted into a Google Doc that has just been created. And if I look into my Slack channel as well, looks like there's a meeting summary as well. So that's all come through in my own private Slack channel. Now we'll go back to the agent and see that Freddie has also drafted a follow-up email regarding the Relevance platform, and that email is waiting for approval. So you can see the email has actually been put in. My Gmail account is connected and ready to go. There's an email subject and an email body that I can approve. So this task will be pending for a while until I approve it, if I do want to approve the email, and it will eventually send through to the prospect. So there you have it. That is an example of an AI workforce in Relevance AI. And as you can see, the transcript came through. It was all stored in all those different platforms that we saw, and an email was drafted and ready to be sent to a prospect. Now, if you like these agents and you want to see more of them, and you also want access to some of the different resources that I'm going to be providing, as well as a lot of clone links to the agents, please do like the video and subscribe to the channel. And also comment down below if you have any ideas of AI agents or AI workforces that you would like to see built next, and I'm very happy to make them. Catch you in the next video.